solve literal equations. Alright, so for this assignment, we're going to be given a formula or some type of equation, and we're going to be asked to solve for a variable. It is very similar to solving a multi-step equation. Our goal is to isolate the variable that we're trying to solve. So the steps are, first we need to simplify things like combine, like term, or distribute. 2 is you're going to add or subtract, 3 multiply or divide. But once again, beware, when the variable is in a fraction, you will multiply first and then add or subtract. Alright, so let's look at some of our examples. So here we have the formula for simple interest. I equals PRT. And we want to solve for R in this case. Okay, so we're trying to isolate this R right here. Alright, so I equals PRT. Is there any simplifying we can do? That does not look like there is. So how do we get the P and the T away from the R? Well, it looks like they are connected through multiplication. And the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to go ahead and divide by P and by T. But instead of doing it one step at a time, I can actually just go ahead and divide both of them at the same time. I'm going to divide by both P and T. And once I do that, the P's cancel out, the T's cancel out, and R is by itself. So that's pretty simple. So I'm going to bring down, I'm going to switch them. I'm going to bring R over here. I'm going to say R equals I divided by P times T. And there is my answer. I just went ahead and simplified that. And that's all there is to that one. Okay, next one. Here we have an equation. 2x minus 3y equals 8, and we want to solve for y. So right here, I want to get rid of that. Alright, so first step, is there anything that we can simplify? Is there any like terms or any distribution? We have an x, 2x, and a 3y. These aren't like terms, so we can't do anything with that. There's no distribution, so we're good. We can go on to step 2, which would be add or subtract. Or remember, multiply or divide if what I'm looking for is inside of a fraction, which it's not. So, how do I get rid of this 2x? Okay, a lot of people would think we have to add the 2x because of this minus sign. Remember, that's not true. This 2x is a positive, so we're going to go ahead and minus this 2x from both sides. And so that cancels out, and we get this minus 3y that drops down equals negative 2x plus 8. Okay, is y by itself yet? It's not. It still has this minus 3 or negative 3 out in front, and it's being attached through multiplication. So the inverse would be to divide it. So we're going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. We get y equals negative 2x plus 8 all over negative 3. Or we could also write it as y equals 2x minus 8 over 3. Because these two negatives, negative and a negative is a positive, and positive 8 over negative 3, that would turn that one into a negative. I would accept either one of these answers though. Okay? So that's all you can do. There's no solving any farther than that. We just simplified it as far as we could go. So this, one of those, would be my final answer. Okay, so now we got the volume of formula. So we got volume equals pi r squared times h. It's the volume of a cylinder. And we want to solve for h. So we want to solve for this right here. Okay, so how do we get rid? Well, first off, is there any simplifying we can do? Is there any combining like terms, distribution, anything like that? And there's not. So h is being connected to pi r squared through multiplication. So we can simply divide this whole thing by pi r squared all at once. Because the pi go away and the r squared goes away. Divide over here by pi r squared. And h is now by itself. I'm going to bring h down. I like to bring it over here onto the left side. H equals v over pi r squared. And there is my final solution, my answer, simplified. Okay, now we got volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. This is the volume of a sphere. And we are solving for r this time. So this r right here. Alright, this one's a little more complicated than our last one. Alright, first thing I am going to do, technically you're probably thinking, can I just divide by 4/3 pi and be done? We don't like to divide by fractions. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this fraction. And if you can recall, if I have a fraction times a variable, the way I get rid of it is by multiplying by its reciprocal. So I'm going to times it by 3/4, because the 3's and the 3's go away, and the 4 and the 4, you got one on top, one on bottom, so they go away. So I have to times this over here by 3/4. So let's go ahead and write that down for now. So I have 3/4 v equals pi r cubed. Okay, I'm still trying to get rid of this r, or trying to get r by itself, sorry. So now I'm going to go ahead and divide by my pi to get that away from the r. Alright, so I have 3/4 v divided by pi equals r cubed. Those pi's disappeared. They didn't disappear, they turned into one. Anyway. Okay, it's r by itself. It's not, it still has a cube. So how do I get rid of that cube? Well, you take the cube root. Remember, whatever you do to one side, you've got to do to the other side. So this cube root and the cube would disappear. So I'm going to end up getting r equals the cube root of 3/4 v divided by pi. Okay, and there's probably different ways you can simplify that, but for now, we're good. That's all we need to do, okay? We got r isolated, and we have solved the equation for r. Alright, so if you want to pause at this point, you could have paused at any of those other points, and maybe try to solve this one on your own first. See if you can't do it, and then come back and see how I do it. Alright, so we are going to solve for x. Alright, so can I combine like terms or anything? No, I cannot. I can't combine like terms, so we're just going to go on to the next step, which is add or subtract. However, my variable x is inside of a fraction. So remember, when it's inside of a fraction, I actually have to get rid of this 5 first. So, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this negative while I'm at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to times both sides by -5. And when I do that, that -5 on top times that -5, so negative times a negative is positive. So those disappear and turn into a 1. And over here I got -5 times 3, which is -15, equals 2x plus 7y. Okay, now I got rid of that division. So now I'm good. Now I just go into my adding and subtracting. So in this case, we're solving for x. So we want to get rid of this 7y. And it's plus 7y, so it's a positive 7y. So we're going to minus 7y from both sides. That disappears. We get negative 7y minus 15 equals 2x. Okay. At this point, we're just going to go ahead and get it's 2 times x, so the opposite is divide by 2. And I get x equals everything over here. So negative 7y minus 15 all over 2. So the trick to that one, that whole problem, is you had to times by -5 first. because your x was inside this fraction, or big division problem. Alright, so that's it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully that all made sense. And go ahead and get started on your assignment.